Here's a gem bit. What if I told you that one of the most expensive and rare gemstones in the entire world can be found right here in the United States? It's called Bixbyte or red emerald. It's so rare that prices start at $50,000 per carat, which leaves only one question. What's in your wallet? Discover the value of your story. Increase. So this award lets me know that good morning, bonjour, comment ça va? Et toi, ça va très bien. Bienvenue, Wan Ying, bienvenidos, bienvenita, privet, namaste, and welcome. Welcome to another exciting episode of Gem Hunter Stories. My name is Barry B. Mixon, and I am a gemological storyteller. And what I do is I take the art, science, history, and magic of gemstones, precious metals, and fine jewelry, and I put them all together into a story. What I discovered over the years is that many of the same characteristics, the same traits, the same concepts that we use to appraise and highly value gemstones can be found in people. So I take those stories and I use them as a template, as an inception point, as a bridge to help people, to empower people, to inspire people to discover the value of their own stories, of who they are, and how, just like a gemstone, how they resonate with the light. I say that every week. And the hardest part about once you discover your story and you begin to look at other people's stories, it doesn't mean that you're going to understand their stories. It doesn't mean that their story is your story. But the thing that you need to understand is that it doesn't matter if whether or not you like their story or you believe in their story. The thing that I want you to know is that those stories have value. Everybody doesn't like diamonds. Everybody doesn't like pearls and jade and different types of gemstones. I know people who are absolutely against diamonds, but yet they understand its value. Even though they don't own it, even though they don't wear it, they understand their value. And I really learned that this last week. You know how each week I tell you that this is an adventure for me and I'm bringing you into the adventure of the week? Well, this is what happened to me, my story this week. I have a friend that I know and I've known for a while. This is about 5 or 6 years. And we've been in the same club together with Toastmasters. And I've known him. I've heard his speeches. And I hadn't seen him in a while. So last week, I was just going through LinkedIn, social media, and his post came up. And I said, oh, let me see what he's into. And when I looked at the post, there was 2 pictures. There was a picture of him. And then there was a picture of a young lady. And my first thought was, oh, this must be his girlfriend or his wife. But then when I looked a little closer, I realized that she looked a little young. I was like, okay, maybe it's not that. But then when I looked a little closer, I realized that she looked a lot like him. So I said, okay, that's got to be his daughter. And I'm looking at the picture while scrolling through because I wanted to see the significance of this young lady. I thought he was going to celebrate, oh, this is my daughter and she's done this, things of this. You know what you see on social media. And by the time I got to about a quarter of the way down, he said in bold letters, I am transgender. I was shocked. My mind was blown. I literally sat in this seat and said, oh my God, because I know him. I've talked to him. I've been face to face with him. And I always knew that there was something different about him. He was, I'm in touch with my feminine side, but he was a little bit more than I figured. So to be honest with you, I figured he's gay. Cool. But I never, ever, ever thought in a million years that he was trans. And once I started going through all just the emotions of it, literally, I went through a whole range of emotions. The thing that came to my mind, the image, the thought that came to my mind was, and because of the way my mind works, I said, how does this relate to gemstones? I mean, really, literally, I said, where in gemology does this relate to what I'm experiencing and what he had done or is announcing to the world? And the first thought that came to my mind, thank you, Barbara, was pearls. So the title of this show is Transcending Gender, a comparative exploration of gem identities and being transgender. Because, and the reason why I thought about pearls, and this is going to blow your mind, and I've talked about it before, but I really want you to understand how gemstones are connected to people. Every pearl that you have ever seen in your life, TV, you own pearls, your grandmother had pearls, your mom had pearls, you are part of a sorority where pearls is your symbol, AKAs I think about. Anytime you've seen a pearl, real or cultured, that pearl comes from a transgendered organism. Yes. And let me say it in a different way. All mollusks, which oysters and mussels are part of, oysters are fresh saltwater, mollusks are freshwater. So any oyster that you have ever seen, all oysters start their life out as males. And then after about a year, they change into females. Let me let you think about that for a second. All oysters, look it up, Google it. I've done the research. All oysters start out as males. And then after about a year or so, it's different for each species, but they start out as male, they change into being female. In fact, this is really going to blow your mind. Some of the species of oysters and mollusks, they not only change, but they go back and forth between male and female to male. And the reason why that's so important is because oysters or mollusks are a keystone organism, meaning that they set up they are the source, they are the base, the foundation to a whole lot of other organisms. In fact, oysters and mollusks have been around for 550 million years. They were one of the first species on Earth. And some of those species, literally, not only are they can change from male to female and back again, but some of them are so exquisite in their design that they have both sperm and eggs in the same oyster. In the same oyster. This pearl right now has been created, this beautiful, highly valued, almost perfectly symmetrical pearl has become what that pearl is because that pearl comes from a transgendered organism. And when I first thought, and some of you are sitting there like, what? Yes, yes. And I love pearls. In my journey to understanding pearls happened because of this show, because I have a whole certification of pearls, and they tell you that pearls come from oysters and how pearls come from, but I never really put it together as far as what is the sexuality of an oyster. In fact, they have it down to the point where when they're oysters that make pearls that are male, and there's also oysters that make pearls when they're female. And what they found is that the male, when the oysters are in their male structure, that they produce better pearls than the female oyster. And my first thought was two things. One, probably the female is so busy energetically wise making more oysters that they don't have time to totally get themselves together. But the other thing that I thought about was how a lot of men, and I'm talking about men in the LGBTQ plus community, lots of them, the way they dress, the design, the colors, the things that they see is exquisite. Male oysters make better pearls. And the thing that I want you to get out of today is to understand that those oysters, those mollusks, when you look at them, you cannot tell the difference. You cannot tell whether that oyster, those of you who eat oysters, when you go to an oyster or clam bar, when you go to that oyster is transgender that you're eating. I know some of you might like, oh, I'll never eat them again, but it's true. That's the point. Something that you have been appreciating for your whole life, especially those who eat oysters, that you have been eating an organism that is transgender. And until you literally look inside of it to physically figure out what is it? Is it male? Is it female? The only way you can figure that out, there's no signs. It's not like it has a vaginal collar. It's not like it has a penis. It's just a gonad. It is the sex organ. And until you figure out what that sex organ is, what is it? Does it have sperm? Does it have eggs? Does it have both? You don't know what it is. You have no idea what it is. So as I was thinking about my friend and the energy that I was feeling about him announcing that he was transgender, I had to really come to grips, because I understand gemology. I had to come to grips with the whole concept is what I saw of who he is. What I saw was not, if I saw him as a younger woman, as I saw him as a woman, I would have never known that inside of him was a man. And that to me speaks exactly to the whole concept of being transgender. People say, oh no, that can never happen in the natural world and is against God. God made oysters. God made everything. So oysters, literally, God had this down pat 550 million years ago. And even though you may feel whatever you feel about transgendered people, you have to stop for a second to at least think that oysters, pearls, when you look, we're talking about pearls that cost hundreds of thousands of dollars, especially if they're real. But even cultured pearls, Mickey Moto pearls, and we'll do a whole thing on pearls in July. But Mickey Moto pearls, a strand of pearls can cost tens of thousands of dollars. When Julius Caesar had to serve up ransom for one of his, and he had a whole bunch of women, he had to give that the robbers, the kidnappers, ransom. He traded, instead of, he didn't give the kidnappers money, he gave them a black pearl. And when they figured out the money, the value of money back in Roman days versus the value of money now, that pearl was worth about $500 million. One pearl. So you have to say to yourself, why does that pearl have value? Why does that Tahiti, this is Tahitian pearls. If you bought a string of pearls like this, look at the color, look at the symmetry, look at the way it glows. You would be paying thousands of dollars for this. Remember that? Remember that time I told you when I went to Tahiti and I walked into the many numerous pearl shops that they have there, and I walked into a shop and I told you that there was this spectacularly beautiful woman. Oh my God. Oh my God. It was like God just said, okay, let's make a woman. Voila. And when she held that pearl and I walked in there asking her, why is this pearl worth $40,000 for one? And she rolled it on the table to show me how the light traveled throughout the whole table, came back, and then she lifted up the pearl in her beautiful manicured hands and said, voila. And I couldn't tell the difference between the pearl in her hand, where her hand stopped and where the pearl began. That was the journey. That's the thing that I have to think about. So when we talk about stories, discovering someone's story, and I talk about it, you can't tell what something is. I talk about gem identification. You can't tell what someone is based on what they look like, based on what you see, based on the way they move, or the things that come out of their mouth. You still don't know who they are until you understand their story. So the person, the only reason I'm not saying this name, I haven't asked him for permission, and I just think this is something huge. So, but what I had to consider was not my own story or the way I felt about it, but I had to understand how he felt, how he identifies with, he is a man, he is male. And inside of him, his structure is female. Well, I'm sorry, with him, he started out as a female. That's what that picture was. That young woman that was in the picture next to him, that was him. That was him. And he, inside of himself, he was actually male. And so many of us, the reason why that hit me so hard and the reason why I wanted to do this show is because I know what that feels like. And many of you know what that feels like, to live a double or triple life where you know who you are inside. And yet you can't manifest that. You can't show that. You know, how many women, especially women who know that they're smarter than their male boss, or talented, or went to school and do all these different things that women do and have shown the world that women can do for thousands of years. And yet, because you're a woman, you're not supposed to have those characteristics. Because you're Black, you're not supposed to have those characteristics. Because you're gay or trans or bi or short or tall or white or Black, you're not supposed to have those characteristics, because people have put you in this box. People said to you that you are this. And my point is, it doesn't matter if you necessarily understand the story. Some of those feelings that I was feeling about my friend announcing this on LinkedIn was, believe it or not, I felt selfish. Like, how could you lie to me? How could you lie to me and make believe that you're a man? But that's not the way to look at it. That would be just like, I love pearls. I absolutely love pearls. I have a whole different certification just in pearls. But I know when people tell me, oh, I don't like pearls, I don't get mad at them. I don't look at them in a way like, what? What do you mean? Why? Because even though they don't like pearls, it's okay, because I value pearls. I know what pearls do for me. And the purpose of this show is to get you to maybe start thinking. Start thinking about who you are inside and how do you manifest that? How do you interact with the light? We the same thing with, and we'll talk about this more next week, because I want to talk about diamonds and jade. When you look at a diamond, you don't say to yourself, a diamond is the hardest natural known substance in the world, the hardest substance. But nobody ever bought a diamond in their life because of its hardness. Unless you're an industrial engineer or something, like just cutting concrete or using different tools. No one said, I bought that diamond for its hardness. No man on the face of the earth has ever given a woman and said, honey, I bought you a diamond. And she says, oh, sweetie, that's so nice. And baby, I bought you this diamond because this diamond reminds me of you. Really? Because I'm bright? Because I shine the light? No, baby, because this is the hardest known substance known to man. What? Yeah, baby, I got this because this is the hardest known substance known to man. In fact, on the scale of 1 to 10, baby, a diamond is 1,000 times more harder than a ruby or a sapphire. There's women sitting there looking at this show like, yeah, right, that would be not, because that would be a problem. But think about it. When you see a diamond, what do you see? You see the beauty. You see the elegance, you see the scintillation. That's what you see when you see a diamond. You don't really see what it is inside. Same thing with jade. It's the same situation with jade. Jade is the toughest gemstone. But you never see that. All you see is the creaminess. All you see is the elegance. All you see is the way jade feels on your skin. Those of you who have owned jade and know jade earrings, jade necklace, you know that feeling, but you don't ever think about jade as the toughest gemstone. So when you're looking at these pearls, every last one of those pearls came from something that was transgender. It's a transgendered organism. You cannot turn that around. That's what it is. And it has been that for 550 million years. So that person in your community, that person at your office, that person in your life, that person who is in your family, who has had the courage to come out, the courage to be authentic, the courage to make the decision that they are going to be the person that they know that they are. Until you either they let you know or you understand their story, you don't understand their value. You don't know what these pearls are worth really because you don't understand what it went through to become that pearl. That's why the name of this show is basically Transgender, Transcending Gender. Gem identification, gem identities, and becoming transgender. Because all of us, inside of us, and some of us, that's not a feeling that I have. To me, it's kind of hard enough just being a man. To me, it's hard being a woman. I see what women do and I'm like, nah, but that wasn't for me. That wasn't what my structure is. But when you say that, you have to at least understand the structure of others, of other people who are walking around the earth every day, friends, family, people you work with, people that you respect, people that you love. But inside, there's something different. There's a whole different feeling that they have. And as I started as I was going through this journey this week, thinking about my friend, thinking about the whole concept of being transgender, I saw the different arguments, and people are angry about it. People are just all kinds of things. But in the essence of what the whole thing about is really about value. Do you value this human being? Let's just decide. We all know that transgendered people are human beings. Just like there are different types of pearls. This is a golden South Sea pearl. That's what this is. It's a golden South Sea pearl. This is a more of a freshwater pearl. Actually, this is probably more of an aqua pearl. All right, those are the white pearl. This is a smaller, good South Sea pearl. These are all pearls that have value. They're different. This is a conch pearl, which is totally different than all the other type of jewelry. But the key thing is that they are pearls. They all came from an organism that is transgender, and yet there's a difference in who they are. And the main thing about understanding that there is a difference, even in a life form that is as simple as an oyster. The beginnings of life on this earth, oysters was down. They were there in the beginning. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce you to a absolutely wonderful human being who has taken the time to tell me her story. And when you hear her story and how just some of the things of how she felt in her journey of becoming a trans woman, we'll see how you think at the end. So I'll see you on the other side. Everybody, and welcome to This is Gem Hunter Stories. And we interviewed this part because we're honored to have Rachel and Charlie on, but Rachel was really busy, but she took the time to speak with me yesterday. So we're really honored to have you here. Rachel, welcome to the Gem Hunter Stories family. Charlie, you've been here before, but Rachel, welcome. And thank you so much for honoring us with your presence and, more importantly, your experience. So, first question, how did it feel for you to live the life that you lived before your former life where, and I want you to say it, before you recognized who or made the decision to become who you are? What did that feel all those years before you made that decision?
Well, it's definitely been an adventure and definitely a journey. And I'll tell you, there's no true one major point. My entire transition has been one major point. Mm-hmm. There was definitely a lot of time, especially growing up in my early adult years, that I was really fighting against who I was, mm-hmm. Who I thought I was supposed to be, who I thought society thought I was supposed to be. And it took an awful lot of effort to try to be a person that I ultimately was not. I tried. I put forward that effort to really craft who the male was supposed to be, who mm-hmm. this male identity was supposed to be, but none of it came natural. And that was one of my things for so many years. And after a time, it really just becomes grating on you, and it becomes more and more difficult each day. But then eventually you start to learn as you move forward. From a very young age, probably since the very beginning, I've always known I was female, but I always knew that some of my organs didn't exactly meet right. And growing up at the time and area that I was, it wasn't really acceptable to be anything queer. I mean, if you're really thinking about it, you were still talking about the AIDS epidemic when that was heavily targeted towards the gay community.
Mm-hmm.
And anything LGBTQ was generally not permissible.
Mm-hmm.
So I have this thing going on inside me, and I can't tell anyone. And that became very isolating growing up as well. That you have that just kind of holding over you, but you can never tell anyone ever. And so over the years, that definitely got to be a lot.
Was it hard where did you get your inspiration from and you brought up just the whole AIDS epidemic and just where being queer and just that all the stereotypical statements, the hurtful statements that was just put upon people who were just different, queer, before the letters, before the all the different defining let's say titles that people had. So was there an inspiration? Was there a movie? Was there something? Where did you get a source of strength from for all those years before you made the decision?
So I really tried to bury it. I really focused on trying to continue to work essentially on a male persona. I try, and I know a lot of people do the exact same thing. Like, as you're growing up, well, what kind of man do I want to be, or what kind of woman do I want to be? It's just for most of the population, they at least identify with that gender being as they were born. I was doing this from a totally different perspective. I knew it wasn't a right fit, and I was trying to make that fit regardless. And I wouldn't say there was any real pieces in media that helped show what being transgender is. I mean, I would see women or drag performers performing drag, right? But I always knew that wasn't me. And being trans and doing drag are two totally different things. The drag is just much more of the hello, I'm here. But being transgender is much more I don't want to say like not doing that, but also kind of your everyday stuff too. You don't see drag performers literally going grocery shopping in drag. And so I knew that was a performance, and I knew that wasn't the right fit. And it really wasn't until college, until I started taking some psychology classes, and we came across that topic. I'm like, oh yeah, yeah, that's me. But by then, I was already getting ready to join the Army under Don't Ask, Don't Tell. So again, still can't say anything.
Wow. And now, ladies and gentlemen, this show is mostly live, but of course you talk to your guests beforehand. But that brought up an interesting question, Rachel. So you said the difference between being trans and being what's the other term? Just drag. I said drag. Thank you. So is there controversy between people who are drag performers? It almost felt like, well, yeah, you're a woman only on Saturday nights. I'm a woman 24 hours a day. So is there that kind of...
There really isn't that controversy.
Okay.
But it's like when you see something, well, yeah, it's the same, but no, it's not. It's kind of like sitting here saying, oh, well, he's in the Navy, but you're in the Marines. Oh, they're totally the same. And you're like, you're close, but not quite.
Right.
And there's no real rivalry between the Marines and Navy outside of how much we enjoy poking fun at each other in service.
Right.
I was going to say.
Of course, we're saying yes, but Charlie and I was like, well, we already know who's the best. So go ahead, move on. No. Okay.
But that's about the same thing. It's like you can see it. I don't really have any problems with it. I've never really had problems with drag. It just wasn't me. So it's like, well, yeah, it's kind of getting there, but not.
Okay. All right. Wow. Thank you. So how were you when you made the decision to be authentic? And I keep saying that because you really made me respect when you said that you were always female, I had to really change in my head, because I, like a lot of people, think, well, you just, like you said, you just changed teams, you just made this decision. But when you said that, all last night I kept thinking, like a gemstone, inside everyone else saw a male, but structurally you were a female. So it wasn't like you changed, you were always who you are. A diamond is always going to be what it is. Jade, a pearl is always. So how old were you when you made that decision?
So it was definitely a long process.
Okay.
It was a very long process. And that process was, it was really difficult over the years. It was really challenging. But eventually I got to a point of, because for a lot of years I really tried to fight against it. No, 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 I just have to not be this. I have to not be this, just focus. And I can't. You can't just outright, you can't just force this to not be. It is just inherent to who you are. And eventually I got to a point of, okay, I am this, but I can't tell anyone. I can't do anything about it. And that got to be a lot as well. Unfortunately, I guess to a degree, fortunately, a lot of my life, I have been living with depression as well. I have been living with suicidal ideations. It was a very dark time. And it was to the point where I pretty much always had a plan to end my life. I always knew the exact method how I was going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I was away from home on a 6-month tasker, and it hit me. I was having one of those episodes, one of those real depressive episodes.
Mm-hmm.
And you would think, well, it's going to get real bad because I'm not at home, and it actually turned out to almost be a little bit of a blessing, because I had a full panic attack because I didn't have a plan. I had no idea how I was going to end my life, and I panicked. I couldn't sleep for days until I figured out some sort of makeshift plan. Not to actually execute it at some point at that point, but because I always had that almost as a blanket that I always knew I was going to end my life.
Mm-hmm.
And once I was able to calm down, I really just sat down with myself and said, honestly, this is inevitable. If I don't make a change now, it is inevitable I will end up taking my life. And that's unfair. That's unfair to my wife at the time. That's unfair to my family. That's unfair to my friends. Technically, I guess it's unfair to me too, but that's not who I was thinking about at the time. Mm-hmm. And it was such a dark place, but it was so enlightening. And I just got to that point where I've got to make a choice. Either I accept the fact that I will inevitably end my life, or I change, I do something, I get better. And that's when I really made the decision, I am going to start addressing this. And not long after that, I got into therapy. And the more and more I took control, the better and better I felt. Where there was no one point, I'm going to do this at this time, this at this time, this at this time. But my decision that I was going to start addressing this was really one of the lowest points in my life. And it was incredibly illuminating.
Wow. So I'm just thinking, you said Army, you said a wife. So I just imagine the pressure being hard, I say difficult on you, just if it was just you by yourself. But you also had those other factors, your family, Charlie, your mom, your dad, your wife at the time, Army. And then, Charlie and I know the kind of testosterone driven mentality, a bunch of guys is in there, and we in the service, there's all these derogatory names. I mean, if you even show femininity in the service, it's like how much more difficult was your decision and what you were going through because of all that background noise?
you set it back onto the backdrop of where I came from making the decision.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? I've made plenty of enemies in my career. A
Mm-hmm.
few more won't hurt.
Okay. Okay.
Not
Right.
in comparison to where I was.
Yeah.
I mean, when you're at that point of you will make a change or you're going to end up losing your life, a lot of those other things just stop mattering. And who's going to be here after that? That's who's going to be here. I don't like to say that, but at the same time, I have to do what's right for me. And I can't help anyone else until I help myself in that regard. And I knew that my family was a very loving family. I knew, I mean, I didn't marry a dumb woman.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I love her. I still love her. We're separate. We're divorced now,
Mm-hmm.
but I still love her. But the people that I care about in my life, I didn't bring that hate and bigotry into my life. There might have been a lot of pressure, but I also understood these are very good, very high quality individuals that I brought in. And I don't have to be that afraid.
And again, the whole time I'm just sitting here nodding my head, just honoring your courage. I'm asking myself just the decisions I've had to make. Would I have the courage to literally step out there and just be who I am, despite what people are saying, family pressures, things like this? So the ultimate question, how you feeling? And yeah, how is life now that you've made the and again, I'm not going to say change. I'm not even going to say you're being authentic. Now you are Rachel. So how does Rachel feel?
Every day is better. Every day is better than the last day. It's really an amazing feeling. I kind of stop and chuckle a little bit. You run into some adversity here and there, and it could have triggered that suicidal ideation again, and it doesn't. It never does. I'm sitting here thinking some days like, wow, is this how normal people feel? This is amazing. This is great. I love this.
Mm-hmm.
But not. It really just feels like a major weight is lifted off me.
Mm-hmm.
And every time I make another little step towards recognizing a little bit more of that person in the mirror,
Mm-hmm.
it always makes me happy. It's always like, yeah, that this is always right. That nothing could be more right than what I'm doing right now.
That's wonderful. I mean, how many of us really truly live the life that we were intended to live, and more importantly, have the courage to make those decisions that we have to do for ourselves? And that's the essence of this show, discovering the value of your own story. And that's what you did. So bravo to you. Wow. Um, I'm sitting there watching this, and you know how you watch something again for the first time that you did, and I just thought back to where I was 30 years ago. And remember, I told all of you that, when I was homeless, when I was out there, again, I had all this inside of me. I had, degrees in biology, chemistry, biochem. I was, Marine Corps. I had ribbons, medals, all these things. And yet, inside of myself, I felt like a rock because I was told by, I told you guys, my mom, who basically my name was asshole until I was 12. So and I made a promise to God that if I ever got out of that, I would spend the rest of my life helping people discover their value. That's what I'm about. That's what this show is about. Because, and what I got out of this, and what I hope you got out of this is, um, just understanding, just understanding. It doesn't matter whether or not you agree with what Rachel's doing. And I want to take a second to just thank Rachel. Thank you, Rachel Jones. Thank you, Charlie. And we'll have Charlie on next week because I want you to hear the other side of the story of his experience. But it doesn't matter if you agree with her lifestyle. It doesn't matter whether or not you agree or what you would do it yourself or what you feel inside. It's that's what you feel, but what she feels. You watched a human being who has become who she is. We watch that in superhero movies, when Batman became Batman or Superman had to decide that he was Superman. Those are the things that we do every single day. Every single day, those of us, and we know we talk about, you see things about suicide rates and all the things, people taking their lives. And I think about that newscast, the beautiful woman who was a beauty pageant contestant, and she had money and she had looks and she had everything, and she jumped off a building. And the first thought, where's or Robin Williams? Like, what is it? They had everything, but inside, they weren't who they were. They weren't who they were. And that's why I say every week, I impress upon you every week to discover the value of not only your own stories, because it really starts from you. If you understand your value and what it took for you to discover who you are, that you like baking, that you like cooking, you're a woman, you're a girl, and you just like building engines, or just something that you like doing that. If you're a man and you like dancing ballet, or different colors, and you like doing your nails, and you're a male, whatever. Isn't it wonderful to get to the point in your life where you are who you are? The gemstones, mollusks last for 20 years. The lifespan of an oyster is 20 years. So I said they've been around for 550 million years. They are so awesome that they can fertilize themselves. And a diamond lasts for the average diamond is at least 600 million years old. We don't have that kind of time. We don't have, none of us, whether you're Republican, Democrat, independent, gay, straight, trans, whatever. We don't have that kind of time as human beings. So we have to take the time to discover who we are. 20 years. I have a friend right now who's getting open heart surgery right now, today, that I just found out yesterday. So I don't even know whether or not when I spoke to her yesterday, that may have been the last time I spoke to her. Many of us have lost family members due to COVID, due to all kinds of things, crime. And so we all know that we got a little bit of time. And I can't help but be not only proud of Rachel, but I remember when I would have been envious, because she's living the life that she meant to live. And she made that decision, to her family, her ex-wife, to just all the people, the army, and all these things, to make that decision to come on this show and speak to me. I've never met Rachel. The first time I met Rachel was last night. I've known Charlie for a while, but the first time I met Rachel last night, and it's so funny because I was nervous at first, like, oh my God, what do I say? And then I thought to myself, boy, what are you talking about? What do you say? She's a woman. Her name is Rachel. How would you talk to a woman named Rachel? Okay. And that's what we have to do. We have to, once you understand someone's story, then you can add them into your life or not. But it doesn't take away from your story, and it certainly doesn't take away the value of their story. In each and every week, I can show you. It is doing, gemology is so wonderful for me, because each week I look at something and I just go, And I don't even have to make it up. It's just there. It's like literally analogies to who we are, whether it be color, whether it be size, whether it be structure, whether it be education, meaning something that's inside of us, man, geographic, where did you grow up at? Where are you from? Each week, it's just like amazing. And I thank all of you who watch this show. And I really, truly hope that you're seeing the how you can make those analogies for yourself. How you can take the value of something else, like a gemstone. And that's the amazing thing. Nobody has an argument about gemstones. You could be the hardest right wing Republican or the deepest left wing Democrat. And guess what? You both like diamonds. You both like rubies. You both like pearls. You both like jade. So how is it that those characteristics, how is it that those traits that we so highly value, I appraise gemstones. So how is it that I can put a price tag on that pearl worth thousands of dollars? How could that beautiful woman hold that pearl in her hand and tell me that that single Tahitian pearl is $40,000 for one? You know, I'm a kid from Harlem, New York. I'm like, what? The house I grew up in was $30,000. You could tell way back. How is that single pearl worth $40,000? And people, the store was beautiful, so people are obviously paying that price. And that's because they value it. That's because they value what that pearl is, what that pearl means to them. Rachel valued the person that was inside of who she is. And even though, and I loved when I was talking to her, she said, and I kept saying, you, when you made the switch, you made the change. And she said, Barry, the key thing that people don't understand is that I didn't make a change. I didn't switch. She said, I always was a female. And despite what you may feel, you can't deny what she feels. You can't deny what she feels inside of herself. She is her own oyster. People who are trans are all human beings, but they are different. They manifest different. And yet it doesn't take away the fact that we are all human. We all have different ways of understanding who we are. And as I told you many times, you've seen the transition. You've seen where I was 3 years ago, where I am now, just even with my own mother. I love my mother. At 62 years old, I love my mother now because I understand who she was. I understand her story. So I really hope you got something out of today. I really hope that at least it made just, and send me an email if it just made you think differently. If it made you just go, maybe not convinced, just made you think, So I will say that again, your homework assignment, just what are you? What are you? What could you be? What are you hiding? What are you not hiding? What are you not letting the world see who you are? Think about that. And as always, I look forward to having this conversation with you next week. So until then, my name is Barry B. Mixon, and I am a gemological storyteller. And what I want you to do, as always, is discover the value of your own story. So until next week, au revoir, atatella, voila. The largest aquamarine in the world is called the Dom Pedro, named after the two emperors of Brazil. It is a 60-pound, 2-foot long, 10,363 carat obelisk. When they first got it, they didn't know what to do with it. They saw the beauty, they wanted to keep it all intact, so they created a brand new cut called the Fantasy Cut. something for you to think about when you get dressed in the morning. Discover the value in your soul.